I don't know where you were Christmas 2019, 2020, when Australia was literally going up in flames. ScoMo was in Hawaii and wouldn't hold a hose. I was lying on my couch up in the electorate of Goldstein, having an existential crisis, many existential crises I've had since my early 20s when I became aware of the climate crisis, wondering what on earth we could do. My friend Denise Chauvel from North Sydney, from the electorate of North Sydney, rang me, because we were talking to each other via Twitter, and she said, Sue, you know what? You've got to do in Goldstein, and I've got to do in North Sydney, what Kathy McGowan did in Indi, and Zali Steggall did in Warringah. And I said, sure, how do you do that? So, then COVID hit. And of course, we're all kind of occupied with that. But this never went away. And as I started to think about this more and more, and I thought about what I also do professionally, and as, you know, connections of interactions with people and all the networks that you have, Denise rang me in about November 2020, and she said, listen, there's a woman you need to speak to. They're putting some people together in Goldstein to have a chat about whether or not we could do and put up an independent candidate in the seat of Goldstein. And I said, sure. So I went and actually got on a Zoom call with about 15 or so people, most of them strangers, or all strangers to me, and some of them knew each other. There's a group called the Bayside Climate Crisis Action Group, which is down in our electorate, so a few people there. So we all got on Zoom and we talked about what the hell can we do about this? Because quite frankly, this party-powered politics isn't working for us. They work for vested interests. And some of those have just been mentioned by Mik before. I won't have to go over them. You know who I'm talking about. We want people-powered politics. Because democracy is not a spectator sport. And in a country like Australia, for many years, we've been able to sort of sit back and, you know, think about things going pretty well. But in the last 20 or so years, probably even longer tail than that, things have not been going well. Things aren't been going in our favour. And we had to do something. Now, of the 15 or so people on that Zoom call at the end of 2020, 8 of us decided that we would actually start Voices of Goldstein. So we got a website up, we got some messaging happening, and of course, we had a t-shirt. And on our t-shirt, we had our Independence Day is coming. And we started to do some key activities that were done in Indi. And that is, we started to host kitchen table conversations. We started to get people in our community and we asked them, what's important to you? What do you want to see happen? How do you want to see politics done better? And of course, what came out as top priority was climate action, followed by integrity in politics, followed by equality for women and, you know, minorities, and mutual prosperity. We actually had all of these conversations going on, some remote, some in person. Of course, we weren't in lockdown. And we also started getting out on the streets. We had no money, but we managed to sort of pull together some things and put our t-shirts on. And we'd go and do democracy walks. And we would actually go out and speak to people. And we'd ask them, what's important to you? What do you want? And they kept telling us the same thing over and over and over again. We built up a following of about 300, 400 people. And then we asked those people, would you like to see a community independent candidate for the seat of Goldstein? And they all went yes, because it's better than what we've got at the moment. Because we got nothing done about any of the stuff that you see up here and all the other topics. So then we actually put out communique. We did our first letterbox drop across the whole electorate. So we letterbox dropped 66,000 homes with a little basic flyer that told them what we were and what we wanted to do. And we started to get people responding that they would like to be a candidate. So long story short, what happened was that we had 14 self-nominations. I became chair of the selection panel. We had a diverse range of people who actually were part of that panel so we could represent the different types of people in our electorate. And then I got a phone call in July. Actually, no, I got a tweet in July from Angela Pippos, who some of you may recall was actually an ABC, one of the founding sort of female sports journalists in this country. That was a bit of a baptism of fire for her as well. She tweeted me, and I've gone, oh, she goes, can we talk? And I said, sure. So we exchanged numbers via DMs. We had a chat one Saturday morning, and she said, I see what you're doing in Goldstein. I live in Goldstein. It's not for me, but I reckon my best friend Zoe Daniel would be amazing. Now, if you want to have a great candidate, you'd love a marquee candidate that a lot of people might know. So I'm on the other end of the phone with my mouth open going, oh my God. So Zoe and I met. I explained what we were doing, and Zoe said no. And I went, oh, okay. So then I said to Zoe, you're a journalist. Maybe there's a good story in this. Do you mind if I stay in touch? So I stayed in touch, because this is a big decision for people to take on. Okay, so it's not for the faint-hearted, and it's a baptism of fire. Anyway, in October, after several kind of staying in touch, as I let her know, look, we've really got to get our act together. We don't know when the election will be called, but I just need to know, are you in or you're not? And she went, I'm in. And so she went through the process, and of course, as you know, the rest is history. And so, of course, I now bring my my Zoe Daniel t-shirt. And so we started, and we took all of these people, we promoted it, and we ended up with 1,500 volunteers. And as you know, we actually won. It was an incredible experience, but it doesn't happen by accident. And this is where I'd like to bring in my experience in a professional sense. I've been running my own small business now for the last 30 years. It's a specialist consulting and education firm, and it specialises in ethical, human-centred communication and sales strategies and practices. So I know how to sell something. And when she asked me, actually, when we got her to say yes, she then asked me would I be her campaign manager. I'd never done that before in my life. But when I thought about it, I thought a political campaign is an on-the-ground, human-to-human sales-led campaign. It's about having conversations. Yes, you have an air campaign, your marketing social media campaign, but you need an on-the-ground, human-to-human, having conversations campaign. And that's how we're going to win it, human-to-human. And that's what I made sure we ran as a campaign. And it's been just a really interesting experience, the galvanising of community, bringing people together around something that they can have agency in, that they can take action in. Now, I'm not suggesting you have to run a community-backed independent candidate for your seats here in Geelong. However, you do need to get activation around something to make sure these politicians pay attention to us. And so I'm just going to get my phone, because that gas thing that was on this morning, that the Labor government actually promoted. Well, Josh Burns has the seat of McNamara, and that's right next to Goldstein, and he won it by this much from the Greens, and he's a Labor politician, and he has come out against that announcement today. So this is very interesting. So if this even stays Labor, which is 2 Labor seats, Corangamite's on it's always on a knife edge and stuff. By the way, I'm originally from Geelong, so I'm a Geelong girl, born and bred. But it doesn't mean to say you have to run a Zoe candidate. Yeah, sure, if you want to and you've got momentum, by all means, go for it. Run a good campaign. There's materials and stuff that we can share. I won't bore you with the details, but I've done this Community Independence project, and I've been able to put up, I've done some Zooms and things about how to run strategies and campaigns and stuff, so I won't bore you with the details now. But the point is, even if you don't put a candidate up, amass a bunch of people and go in their faces and tell them this is what needs to happen, and force them to pay attention to you. Democracy is a team sport. It's an activated sport. You have to get out there and create momentum. Zoe then asked me, it wasn't just Zoe's campaign, but Zoe asked me last year if I'd run a non-partisan, coalition of people for the Yes campaign in Goldstein. And so I ran a 16-week on-the-ground campaign with 500 volunteers. So I've brought my little Yes t-shirt for that. It's obviously, not the national result that we wanted. But I can tell you now that if we had not run an on-the-ground human-to-human campaign to engage people out there, it would have been a no in Goldstein. So human to human makes a huge difference. Where else have I applied my approach, my professional skills to these things? I don't know if any of you remember, but back on the 15th of March 2021, there was a big protest called March for Justice, where we stood up for what happened to women in Parliament House, particularly Brittany Higgins. Does everyone remember that? I'm one of the founding organisers for that. I did all this messaging and I made sure our strategy and the website was up there. Here are some of the stats. On the 28th of February, Denise Hendry tweeted, how many people would it take to surround Parliament House, Canberra, to express our disgust at what was happening in the Parliament House? And someone came back and said 4,000 if you held hands around it. But then someone said you can't hold hands around Parliament House because it's actually a security risk. So we went, all right, how can we go out on the grass? How many people can we get to Canberra on the 15th of March? And the reason we chose that day was that was the first day of sitting back. We know when they were back in, it was their work day. This is a workplace issue. So that was on the 28th of February. On the 1st of March, someone tweeted, could someone build a website? And I saw that and I looked at my husband who's an IT geek and went, yes, we can. And so I then met with Janine on the Tuesday morning, the 2nd of March, and I said, we can build the website. I want to do the messaging that's very inclusive. I wanted to do messaging that actually is invitational. I don't want it to be divisive. And I felt like I'd spent my whole life preparing for this moment. And so we got the website up by 3:30 that afternoon. And then everything started to go and everything started to happen. So here's what ultimately happened. We ended up with 110,000 people marching around Australia at over 200 locations across this country. 8,000 people turned up to Canberra, 15,000 in Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne, 8,000 in Adelaide, 8,000 in Perth, and then places all over the country, even very conservative places like Orange and Warwick, were having their own March for Justice because this issue of women's violence and all that sort of stuff and all the things happening to us was just enough is enough, as you know, the hashtag. On the Saturday before the actual event, the website itself got over 800,000 hits from Australia alone, 40,000 from the US, 30,000 from Europe. This event had over 7,000 unique media impressions, all the mainstream media in this country, both radio, TV and press. We had NBC, BBC, Time Magazine, you name it. We were in the major news headlines in the Western world, including also other places in Asia. On the actual Monday in Canberra, it was the most amazing experience to be able to, there was a few of us, because we had no money either, and these are in short supply, but here's my March for Justice t-shirt that we wore. So it's only a few of them we were able to get printed. And as the posse of us were walking up to Parliament House, we had a Canberra crew organising everything. It was a beautiful bluebird sunny day, and everyone was coming out of the streets to go to Parliament House. And then people started seeing us, and they said, oh, are you the organisers? And we went, yes. They started crying. They started hugging us. They said, I can't thank you enough for giving us something to galvanise around, to finally say enough is enough. And this is what I'm trying to share with you. As terrible as the statistics are and the actual experiences are we're seeing out there, you are not without agency. You are not without something that you can do. But we need a clear message, we need to galvanise, and we have got capability to be able to take it right up to them. So, here's the sort of finish to what I want to say. In May last year, I went up for my turn to work out of the Canberra office for Zoe. So because we don't have a lot of staff as independents, some volunteers will take turns when there's a sitting week to go up and be kind of the admin support and stuff like that. Anyway, when I was sitting on the tarmac in Melbourne Airport ready to take off for Canberra, it was about 6 o'clock in the morning, and I was reflecting, I was thinking, the last time I was in Canberra was for March for Justice, and I was outside Parliament House. Now I'm going inside Parliament House with Zoe Daniel. That's what people power can do. So thank you for the opportunity for me to present this evening. Good luck to you all, and good luck for all of us. Thank you very much.